All right. Good afternoon, dear students. Okay, so I was waiting for you for a while, and well, I guess that many of you were not able to attend today because of some personal issues. That is totally understandable. So let me please start with the class. Then I'm gonna record this for you in order for, of course, all of you to watch this class later on when you have the time and availability to do so. And of course, by doing so, we're going to manage to practice tomorrow. And I think is, of course, what all of you want to do, right? So let me please record this class. It's being recorded already and it's already streamed as well. So let me please start then with the presentation that I have for you. As you remember, last week we were dedicating all our attention to the speaking section number 4 and also to the writing section task number 1. Now it's time for us to move on to the second task of the writing section. And as I say, many of you maybe did not have time or availability to attend today, and that is normal, okay? Don't worry. So in this case, of course, what I do is to normally record these classes, of course, uploading them to YouTube so that you can rewatch them in your free time, and thus we can proceed with our practices as we had anticipated, okay? So let me please enter here the writing slides, and then we are going to start with this particular lecture, okay? Great, so let me please open this and let's go. All right, here we are, TOEFL writing, part independent essay. Well, actually, you remember that the previous week, I told you in advance, right, that the writing section is very similar to the speaking section somehow. But of course, with the only difference that in this case, you're not going to speak up your responses. Now, let us remember that the writing section task number 1 was somehow very much similar to, so sorry, it was just that, there was some noise. But anyways, okay, just a second. Okay, sorry, it was that I was having some people ringing the bell in my house. Well, great. So I had said that in this task, the only thing we have to do is to compare this section with the speaking section as well. And well, in the second task of the writing section, dear students, what we have to do is to basically read a question that ETS is going to give us. And apart from that, we simply have to, we have to read, and well, we have to respond to a question that in this case, well, it's going to be very much easy to ask, and also of course to respond, because as you can see here, the question is going to be a personal question, right? As the ones we have been responding in the speaking section task number 1, if you may remember, it's a very simple thing to do, right? And in this case, the only thing you have to do, as I say, is to read and then to respond a question that is going to be asking about personal things. And they are very common and very much, let's say, trivial things. You're going to trust me in this one because I'm going to show you some examples. And of course, in this case, as you can see, you have to write an essay, right? In which you're going to state and explain your opinion, your response to this personal question. Because, well, as we have seen also in the speaking section task number 1, in this case, we merely have to somehow deliver, right, a response by giving our opinion, stating what we believe, stating what we consider to be true, and then of course defending that idea by offering some personal reasons and motives, right? Great. So how much time you have for writing this essay? In total, you have 30 minutes to write down the essay, okay? And your objective is going to be to secure your position and to be convincing as well. As we all know, we've been doing also in the speaking section task number 1, which is, as I say, very much easy to do, right? Great. So now, what else can I tell you? What I can tell you is that, let me here go to the next slide. It would be excellent, by the way, dear students, if in this case you manage to write down 450 words, okay? Because remember that in our last exam or test, we had to, well, that is to say in the task number 1 of the writing section, right? We had to write down 150 words at least. Now, in this case, the minimum quantity of words for this essay, it's by the way 300. But nonetheless, as you can see here, I recommend you to write down in a very, very much, well, let's say, positive and optimistic scenario to write down at least 150 words, because that would mean, of course, that you are writing an essay that, let's say, matches all the characteristics that these essays that have gotten fantastic grades have also presented in this case. So yeah, it would be great if you manage to write down 450 words. And as you can see here, you have to write down 15 words per minute in order to do so approximately. And there are some very much useful websites in order for you to practice your typing if you want to. Because of course, your writing doesn't only depend on the grammar you have and orthography you have, but also depends as well in your typing. That is to say, how fast you type. And of course, in order to do so, there are a lot of tricks and different recommendations and outlines you have to follow. And here, as you can see, I have 2 different websites that have been of incredible help to me in the past. And I want to recommend them to you. The first one is typingtest.com. And the second one is sense-land.org. These websites have been tremendously helpful for me. And as I say, it will be great if you manage to, to enter into these websites and of course to improve your typing by yourself, doing some exercises, responding to some quizzes, etc., etc. It's not a very difficult thing to do. All right. Well, great. As I say, so summarizing what we have said until this point, the second task of the writing section asks you to read a question that is about personal, trivial, but very much a controversial topic in which you have to write down an essay as a response to that question, stating your opinion and defending your position. That is to say, defending why you have that opinion. What are the reasons, motives you present for holding that particular opinion about the topic? Okay, that is all what you have to do. And as we have said, we also have to write down at least 300 words, but it will be appropriate and of course awesome if we manage to write down 450 words, which, as I say, represent, let's say, the most common trait in people who have gotten very high and, of course, desired scores in this exam. They have always presented essays with this quantity of words approximately. Okay, so 450 is going to be our aim, but the minimum is 300. Okay, great. What else we have? So before I get into my advices for this section, let me of course send you the, I'm going to send it right now to the WhatsApp group. I'm going to send, where am I? Give me a sec. I'm going to send the, where I said, just give me a second. I'm going to send the template, of course, right? Because as we had for the first task of the writing section, it is also necessary for this one to have some sort of template for us to be guided. That is to say, to know more or less how should our essay be organized, etc. Okay, so please, when you see this class, download this document that I'm sending. It says writing to temp up. And of course, after you do so, open it and you're going to be able to see what I'm seeing right now. Let me open it by myself. Here I have it. And as you can see here, we have a very similar, let's say, well, template and also structure as we had in the first task of the writing section. Well, in this case, as you can see, in the template, we have introduction, we have body, and in this case, for those of you who were wondering, we have a conclusion as well, which is, of course, great, right? Because many of you were wondering and asking me about the conclusion in the last essay. And although at that time it wasn't necessary, for this essay, it is absolutely necessary to write down a conclusion. But as you're going to be able to see, it's not a very common and, let's say, simplistic conclusion, but it's a very good one. Okay, so bear with me until that point. Now, here we have, as I say, the structure as we have practiced it before. But we also have below it, or that is to say, if you scroll down a little bit, you're going to find out my example of the essay, of course, in order to show you how can you apply this same structure, right, this same template into an actual essay, which is, as I mentioned, our idea and objective for this class. All right? Well, very good. So here we have the introduction, etc., etc. So in order for me to explain how this works and in order for me to show you how to apply this into an actual exam, let me please enter here once again my slides, and I want to show you, dear students, here what is going to be the question that I'm going to be responding to in my essay, right? Because as you managed to see in the document that I sent to the WhatsApp group, I had an essay that was already written by me responding to a question. What was that question for you to understand the essay and, of course, to perceive how I'm applying the template and the structure within that essay? As you can see here, this is the reading passage, or excuse me, this is the question, the reading question you have to, of course, analyze before you start writing your essay. In my case, it's this one. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. This is the question, very simple, right? Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. Now, as you can perceive, this statement, as it is very short, doesn't represent a challenge to be understood. It's basically asking us, do you believe reading is more educational than watching movies or TV or not? What do you believe, right? And as you can see here, the question is, although this is said to be an open question, although, well, I mean, that is how they, let's say, sell the task, right? The question is not totally open because if you look at it, it's limiting your range of responses to merely two. Whether you believe reading is more educational than watching movies or TV, or the contrary, that is to say you believe that watching movies or TV is actually more educational than reading. So you have to go for one of those options, reading or watching movies or TV. So as I say, although the response is said to be open, and although you are requested to give your opinion, please, whenever your question is like this one, as you can see, it's limiting your response to two different options, go for one of those options. As I told you in the speaking section, task number one, it is not a good idea to offer an essay that argues for a middle ground response. No, better if you go for, as I say, reading is more educational or watching movies or TV is more educational. You go for right or you go for left. You go for black or you go for white, right? It is not good to remain, as I say, in the middle ground, trying to offer a response that avoids giving an opinion and defending it. The idea is to offer and to state an opinion and to defend it by yourself with some arguments and illustrations, as we're going to be able to see. Okay, so this is the topic. Do you agree or disagree with the following statements? Reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. In my case, and you're going to notice this, in my essay, right, the one that I wrote, I'm going to be defending the position that reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. That is, well, my personal opinion, at least when I wrote the essay, that reading was more educational than watching movies or TV. Therefore, you're going to notice that in my essay, this is the opinion I'm going to present of myself, and I'm also going to defend that particular position. I am going to offer some reasons, arguments, and illustrations to support and hold my position, as I also, of course, stated at the beginning. Okay, now let us come back here to the documents that we have, and then, of course, we're going to continue. All right, great. Here I have it. Well, we have fact number one, fact number two, according. Well, as you can see, let us start with the introduction. Dear students, what is the introduction? As you can see, the introduction is composed of three different items. Firstly, we have a fact number one. Secondly, we have a fact number two. And finally, we have accordingly. Accordingly is a connector, basically. Okay? So, fact number one, fact number two, and accordingly. What do I mean by fact number one? Before I respond to that question, notice that, for example, my fact number one here in the template is highlighted with yellow. And that's because here in the essay I wrote below, my fact number one is also highlighted with yellow for you to see what? For you to see that this is what I mean when I say fact number one, for you to identify what is my fact number one in my essay. Fact number two, right, of the introduction is also highlighted with red, as you can see here, okay? Great, that's the idea. Now, then we have accordingly, right? And also is highlighted with blue or light blue, and the same for the rest of the template, okay? So let us start with fact number one. What do I mean by that? Let us read it first. It means, well, in my essay, right, it says, it has been scientifically demonstrated decades ago that people who read 5 books per year have a wider vocabulary than the average people. Now, remember that my position I'm defending and stating here in this essay is that personally, I believe reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. So this fact is basically a piece of information. I repeat, it's a piece of information that I offer right at the beginning without telling my personal opinion yet, that helps my case and my position right from the beginning. As I say, as you notice here, I am offering a piece of information or data that I was aware of at that moment when I wrote the essay that supports, that offers a positive case for my perspective and opinion. That is, as I say, that reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. But notice that in this sentence, in this fact number one, I'm not mentioning my opinion yet. I'm not saying whether I agree or I disagree with this. It's simply, as I say, a matter of well, information. Great, Elsa. Okay, well, Elsa has left. I guess she's going to come back. Great. Awesome. So let me please continue them until Elsa comes back. Here I have this. All right. Well, and that is the fact number one. It's basically a piece of information or data that you use, as I say, in order to support your opinion on topic right from the beginning. Okay. Great, Elsa. How are you? Nice to have you. So I was explaining this. Yeah. Good afternoon, dear Elsa. I was explaining this as well as any of your partners was able to attend today. I was explaining this and of course recording this class. But anyways, I'm going to repeat very rapidly for you. And I know that you're going to understand this because it's something very similar to what we have been doing before. Look at this, the writing section task number 2. It's basically, yeah, don't worry, dear Elsa. It's basically the same that we did in the speaking section task number 1, you remember? It's basically, you're gonna receive a question, right? A question that asks for your opinion about a very trivial but controversial topic. And the only thing you have to do is to write down an essay offering your response, your personal opinion about that question. And as you can see here, you have 30 minutes in order to write down an essay responding what is your opinion about that question. And as we did in the speaking section task number 1, defending it, right? You have to defend your position. You have to offer some arguments and illustrations for you to demonstrate why you hold that particular position. As simple as that, okay? Now, in this case, you have to write down at least 300 words. That is the minimum. Remember that you have 30 minutes in order to write down this essay. That is the second essay, right? And the second question you have to respond. And as I say, you have to write down at least 300 words, but it will be excellent if, of course, we are aiming to reach at least 450 words, because normally essays that receive a very high qualification, of course, manage to have this quantity of words, okay? But as I say, it's fine if you write down 300 because that is the minimum, but we should, of course, try to aim for 450 words, okay? And as I say, that's the idea for this task. Is as simple as that. Do you have any question, dear Elsa?
I would like to know the structure of this essay because it is bigger than. Sorry, I would like to know the structure of this essay because the first one I think it was smaller than
Yes.
this one, or it's maybe the same structure.
Okay, thank you very much, Elsa. No, it's not actually the same structure. And if you look at the WhatsApp group, I actually already sent the writing template for the second task.
Okay.
It says writing 2 temp up. And if you open it, you're going to be able to see this. Okay. And here I have the template that, as I say, I was explaining before. And great that you joined me because, as I say, I'm going to be able to explain this once again. But as you can see, our structure in this case is composed of 3 different parts. It's different to the first one we had in the writing section task number 1. In this case, we have an introduction, we have a body, and we finally have a conclusion. Okay, so I'm going to explain this step by step. But as you can see here, if we scroll down a little bit in the same document, we have a template, right? Or in this case, a sample essay for you to, of course, see the application of the structure and template into an actual essay. Okay, is that fine?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me explain them.
With those examples, I'm going to they're going to help me with the
Yes.
examples given.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yes, you're right. So let me explain this step by step as we did with the writing section task number 1, okay? How I apply this into my own essay. So what I had said is basically, as you can see here, I have the question that I was using for writing my essay, because as I told you in this essay, the only thing we have to do is to read a question they give us that is asking about our opinion, well, in any trivial and very much controversial topic, and we have to write down this essay as a response, right? And in my case, when I wrote the essay that is in the document, this was the question. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. That is the question. I repeat, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. As simple as that, okay? So in my essay, for you to be aware of this, the position I'm going to be defending is that reading is more educational than watching movies or TV, okay? This is for you to understand how I apply this structure in order to defend that position. And here, as I say, my only recommendation is always when you have this type of question that, as you can see, although it's an open question theoretically, it's limiting your responses to 2 different options, that reading is more educational than watching movies or TV, or that indeed watching movies or TV is more educational than reading. It's always better to go for one of these options, right? Because as you can see, it's as if the question were forcing you to take one of these positions or sides. So better if you go for one of them instead of remaining in the middle ground and offering an essay that, as I say, doesn't go for any of these opinions, okay? Great, so as I say in my essay, what I'm gonna do is to defend this position that reading is more educational than watching movies or TV. So let me show you how I do that by applying the structure. Great, so as I had said, the structure is composed of introduction, body, and conclusion. So let us start with the introduction. Here, as you can see, in my introduction, I have fact number 1 and fact number 2. And as you can see as well, the fact number 1 is highlighted with yellow, right? And also here in the essay below, the fact number 1 is highlighted with yellow, fact number 2 with red, and so forth and so on. Okay, very good. So what is the fact number 1? Let us read it in my essay. Fact number 1, part of the introduction, it says, it has been scientifically demonstrated decades ago that people who read 5 books per year have a wider vocabulary than the average people. As you can see, fact number 1 is basically a piece of information or data that I am offering right from the beginning, right, of my essay in order to make a favorable case for my personal opinion. Notice that in this case, although I am mentioning information and data in favor of my position, I'm not mentioning my opinion yet, because in the last part of the introduction is where we are going to be delivering and stating our opinion. And so this point of the fact number 1, I'm not mentioning my opinion. The only thing I'm doing is to offer a piece of information and data that starts to construct that case in favor of my position, okay? It can be anything. And by the way, it is not necessary for you to mention the source of this information. It is merely necessary, as I say, that you write it down, and of course, always speaking with a very indicative language. That is to say, not saying, I guess, right, scientifically demonstrated, etc., but speaking in affirmations. It has been scientifically demonstrated decades ago that people who read 5 books per year have a wider vocabulary than the average people. Any piece of information that you may be aware of, it's fine. Actually, you can invent it as well, as far as it is rational and, okay, of course, nobody would doubt it is something plausible, you can use it, okay? So that is my first fact in this case. Look at it. It has been scientifically demonstrated decades ago that people who read 5 books per year have a wider vocabulary than the average people. After that, we go to the fact number 2, okay? That is another piece of information or data that, as I say, starts to build this case in favor of my position. What is my second fact? In this case is, likewise, TV has been widely recognized as destructive by several medical experts and researchers, okay? That is my second fact. As you can see, I'm not mentioning my opinion yet, that reading is more educational than watching movies or TV, but what I'm doing is to mention some information or data that helps my case to be developed and defended right from the beginning, right? TV has been widely recognized as destructive by several medical experts and researchers. So after I have these facts, right, fact number 1 and fact number 2, what I do is to continue with the introduction and I go to the last part, accordingly, right? Accordingly is a connector that basically means por lo tanto or en consecuencia, right? And we write down that connector, and here is where you state, offer, clarify what your opinion and position on this particular matter is. As simple as that. For example, notice, accordingly, and here I state my opinion, TV is certainly not more educational than reading. As a matter of fact, reading is absolutely superior to any TV education means. Notice that what I'm doing here is to mention a very, very clear and very much objective opinion. That is to say, I'm not leaving any doubt or hesitation to my reviewer that this is my opinion. So the idea is to always offer this type of opinions or statements, never to offer an opinion that is somehow ambiguous, that it will be difficult to understand, or that it wouldn't be clear what particular position or side you are taking. As I say, the opinion in this case must be very, very clear and very, very objective. It must be, as I say, very clear and very much, let's say, straight. It must not be something very much ambiguous or difficult to understand. Okay, notice that here I'm not leaving any type of doubt or hesitation. That my opinion is that reading is superior to any TV education means. Okay, so that's the idea. Now, after, of course, we finalize, because this is the introduction basically, we offer a transition phrase as we've been doing before. This opinion is due to the following motives, right? And here we use 2 points in order to, of course, start with the body of our essay. Okay, and of course, we are about to jump to the body of the essay. Is there any question, dear Elsa, with regard to the introduction?
No, it's okay. As you mentioned, I have to defend, or it is recommended to defend one opinion, not in the both, in the middle, or the both ways are okay.
Exactly. Yes, that's it. Yeah, very good.
You recommend?
You're very right. Very right. Yes, exactly. Because, well, I think this is, as I say, one of the very few places during the exam when they actually let you have this type of material. That is to say, when you are defending what you actually believe and not what they have given you, right? Because in the other tasks, as you have been noticing, they give us material for us to understand and for us to defend, but now we are defending what we believe, right? Very good. Great. So after we have finalized with the introduction, we jump to the body. And the body is very easy. Let me show you what components we have in the body. In the first paragraph, as you can see, we have first, right? That is a connector. And as I told you, in this body, the only thing we have to do generally is to offer an argument. In this case, 2 arguments we are going to mention in the entire body, right? This is the first paragraph, and we are going to use this paragraph to mention and defend our first argument, and then a second paragraph to defend and mention our second argument. We are merely going to offer 2 arguments for our opinion, and as I say, in this first paragraph, we have to mention our first argument, okay? So first, we always start our body with this word, right? Firstly, you can change, of course, this connector if you find something that is better for you, right? So we have first. So we say first, right? And here is with, of course, where we offer our first argument for this essay. Let me show you what argument I offered in this case. It says, reading offers people the opportunity to have a slower and longer perception of different topics. This is the first reason or motive why I believe that TV is actually absolutely, superior to any TV education means, right? As simple as that. Very good. So notice that in this case, my opinion is my argument is very short. As I told you in the speaking section, the idea with arguments is not to make them very much lengthy or not to make them very repetitive. The idea is to make them as brief as possible, because briefness allows us to attain clearness. Okay, so notice that my argument here, this is my argument, is very simple, very short, and therefore clear. Okay, reading offers people the opportunity to have a slower and longer perception of different topics. Okay, that's the first thing in the body. Then, as you can see, we have another connector. As a matter of fact, and notice that I'm going to use the exact same connector here below. I have it here, as a matter of fact. And here is where you complement, dear Elsa, your argument, because as I told you, in this case, of course, this is an essay, and therefore we have more space. We have more time for us to include more information on our arguments, right? So with this connector, as a matter of fact, we're going to allow us to complement our argument. That is all we have to do. For example, look at how I complemented my argument. As a matter of fact, when people have a book in their hands, they have not the trouble of moving on to the next thing without having understood the previous one. Namely, people can easily go back to the previous page and read again that section they may have not understood appropriately. Notice that what I'm doing here in this, in this entire sentence with the connector, as a matter of fact, is to complement, is to clarify my argument. to make it, as I say, more understandable, to extend it, right? To discuss it even further. That's what I'm doing. And as I say, this is a very good moment for doing so because we have a very long time for writing this essay. And certainly we want to attain 450 words, right? So better if we use these details, right? Or complements in order to offer that quantity of words to our essay, okay? Then we continue complementing. We're going to complement a lot our arguments in this case. Notice that I have another connector. It says, according to apocryphal hearsay, right? According to apocryphal hearsay. And here we're going to, of course, as I say, continue complementing our essay, okay? In this case, it says, according to apocryphal hearsay. And notice how I use this connector, okay? It's very, very simple. It says here, according to apocryphal hearsay, basically an apocryphal hearsay is something that you have heard, right? Some information you have listened to, but you are not sure if that information is true, if that information is tested or something, right? That is basically an apocryphal hearsay. Now it says, according to apocryphal hearsay, just 5 out of 30 words read by somebody are forgotten by the reader, right? As you can see, I am adding more information, more details to support my argument. What is my argument? That reading offers people the opportunity to have a slower and longer perception of different topics. As simple as that, okay? And notice, we have another connector on top of that is, again, for the same purpose, complementing our argument, right? That is very short. On top of that, right, aparte de eso, here we have more complements. Reading offers the opportunity to have people retaining more than they would in fact retain if merely exposed to video content, okay? So as you can see, my argument is this very short sentence, and all this text is for complementing, for expanding my argument, for making it even clearer, okay? All of this is my first argument, basically. Now, here we have arrived to a point when we have this word, exemplifying. And this is because, as we did in the speaking section task number 1, we are not merely going to offer an argument, but accompanying to that argument, we're going to use an illustration of our personal life to illustrate that argument. So here we have the complement, or excuse me, the connector exemplifying. So let me show you how I use this, okay? It says, exemplifying, and here, as I say, the idea is to offer a very personal illustration or example for you to somehow clarify and demonstrate that your argument is true in your life or in the actual world. Let me show you my example. Exemplifying, I always struggled as a child with watching the TV documental my professors used as material for my philosophy classes. Never was I more flabbergasted than that day. This is basically an expression, right, that means nunca estuve más feliz, right? Never was I more flabbergasted than that day when I got a book on the same topic, philosophy, written by the well-known philosopher William Lane Craig. For I did not have trouble to understand anymore. My mind went through all that content very smoothly. Moreover, if I was not able to understand something in its fullness, then I could always stop for a while and thus to proceed. As you can see, I am exemplifying with my own life. Remember, what are the characteristics of a good illustration? Personal and specific, right? I am mentioning that, yeah, as a child, I suffered with this problem when my professors merely gave me documentaries for learning philosophy. I had troubles, I didn't understand, I didn't retain information, but I got a book on the same topic, philosophy, and I started to get more understanding, getting better, because I always managed to stop at the points or things I didn't understand, and then to proceed and move on, right? That's my example. And as you can see, it's very personal and it's very specific because I'm mentioning who was the author of my book, William Lane Craig, right? That's the idea. And when we finalize the illustration, that's all. That's the first paragraph, and that composes, as I say, the first argument in our 2 arguments of the body, because we're going to present 2 arguments. And in this paragraph, as you can see, we have managed to present the first argument and its illustration, right? Is there any question, dear Elsa, with regard to this first paragraph of the body?
Yes, so this essay contains, I think, how many paragraphs? And how many paragraphs? And the other question is, does it have a title, or should it have a title, this essays or not?
Okay. Thank you very much, Elsa. Good questions. Yeah, in this case, as you can see, we have in total here, this will be a paragraph, right? The introduction will be 1 entire paragraph. Then the body contains 2 paragraphs, right? 1 paragraph for the first argument and its illustration, another paragraph for the second argument and its illustration, and finally another paragraph for the conclusion. In total, we have 4 different paragraphs, as you can see here, right? 1 for the introduction, 2 for the body, right? We have here the first one, the second one, and to this time we have 3, and finally we have the last paragraph of our essay, that is the conclusion, right? Great, that is the first question. And then title, yeah, it's not necessary to actually mention here a title because, well, it's, as I say, more of a personal essay, right? If it were somehow, let's say, a poem or some sort of I don't know, story or some sort of research, maybe at that time it would be appropriate for us to offer a title. But in this case, as we are trying to, let's say, write a letter, right? Think about this as a letter that you have to write down to your friends somehow, or to your professor, I don't know, explaining your opinion. It is not necessary for us to have a title. So as I say, the first thing we're going to write down is the introduction, and then we continue until the last part, that is the conclusion. Okay, is that fine? Okay, great, very good. Awesome. So the second paragraph is basically the same than the first one. In this case, we're going to use another connector to offer our second argument. Furthermore, right? Además, furthermore. And here we mention our second argument. Furthermore, and here we have the second argument, the content to be found in books does not distract people from the paramount idea. This is my second argument. As I say, a very simple and short sentence. The content to be found in books does not distract people from the paramount idea. Okay? That is my argument. My second argument for defending that, let us remember, TV is not more educational than reading, right? So what comes after? We have, in fact, right, another connector. And as I say here, we're going to complement our argument. We're going to offer some extra ideas, extra commentaries, or information that helps us to explain this argument further. Okay, no more than that. Look at it. In fact, this is to be one of the more illustrious characteristics of books when compared to the TV. Namely, they always stay attached to the topic and does not take you out of notion. Okay, with music, lights, or any other effect. Okay. Then, what's more, should somebody want to see how TV is so destructive when compared to books, he could look to the fact that TV documentaries are not considered educational material anymore, but mere entertainment. Okay. Then we have another connector, and of course, in this case, we have to illustrate. So it's time for us to illustrate in this case, and to offer another illustration that, as I say, it's personal and specific for demonstrating how this argument applies to our own lives or the actual world. Let me show you how I did it in this case. So I wrote, to illustrate, my sister has said to me that every single time she has watched a documentary about artists, it was not because she actually wanted to learn about music. Actually, all she wanted was to observe the incredible costumes utilized in the documentary. Plus, she has started to watch them in order to follow the most recent trending. Indeed, this is a great indicator to observe that TV merely turns away people's attention from real knowledge and learning. As you can see, I am talking about my sister. And by the way, this is not a true illustration. I've never talked about documentaries with my sister, but I'm making this up in order for me to have something to illustrate my argument with. And let us remember, my argument was the content to be found in books does not distract people from the paramount idea. And that's, of course, meaning, or what I'm trying to mean in that case is that, well, documentaries or TV do distract people, right, from the real learning and knowledge you can attain by studying. So I am using this illustration to exemplify that particular argument in my own life. Okay? Any question, dear Elsa, with regard to this second paragraph?
No, it's okay.
All right, fantastic. And here we come to the last part. As I told you, we have a conclusion in this case. And now let us remember that beforehand, I had basically advised you not to write down a conclusion in the first task of the writing section, for example, because I always told you, right? Conclusions are very repetitive because conclusions are normally summaries, right? In that case, of course, we will be writing summaries within summaries. But in this case, it is a good time for us to offer a conclusion. But here I continue with that idea that a normal or basic conclusion that is merely a summary is not a very good conclusion to write down. So let me offer here another proposal, another alternative for you to write down a conclusion. What is my alternative? Look at it. I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to explain it to you. Look at my conclusion. To round off, I would like to say that it is advisable that parents educate their children to read at least 2 times what they watch on the TV. This way, they could secure their children a good education and not to make them people addicted to simple entertainment. As you notice, my illustration is, or excuse me, my conclusion is basically a word of advice. What I'm doing here is to suppose that I have established my case in a very good manner so that now I have the chance to offer some feedback, to offer some commentaries and recommendations to the general public who is supposedly going to read my essay, right? So what I'm doing is to offer a conclusion that, contrary to the simplistic and common approach, is not offering a summary, but instead of that is offering new information, innovative information, is giving a word of advice of myself in which I mention some details and examples or some, let's say, comments that I'm giving to other people for them to apply everything I have described in this essay to their actual lives, right? And as I said, this is something that you can do every single time. When you establish your opinion, right, you can offer a word of advice. For example, imagine that your topic was about vacations. Where would you like to go for vacations? And you offered an essay responding, hey, I would like to go to Cancun because of these reasons, right? And you say this, this, and this, and this. And then in your conclusion, you could say something like, to round off, I'd like to recommend to everybody to visit Acapulco because, let's say in January, the prices are incredibly low and people can actually, reach some type of offers, and they can receive some free expenses because traveling at that time. You can mention whatever you want, right? The idea is to always mention a very personal and innovative word of advice. Okay, is that fine, dear Elsa? Do you have any question about the conclusion?
Can I use the transitional words like finally, in conclusion, and that's the first question. And the other one, so I can write like as a recommendation to exercise according to the topic.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, you can definitely use order connectors as finally, last but not least, in conclusion. But of course, all of those connectors are available. They are totally legitimate. But in this case, of course, we're using to round off, right? That is not that much common. Maybe that's the reason why we have included it. But anyways, you can decide what connector to use. And yeah, as you said, the idea is to always offer a conclusion that represents a word of advice according to the topic you have defended, right? As I say, in the case of this particular essay, in which I was defending, hey, reading is better than watching movies or TV, my word of advice is related to that topic. And what I'm saying is, hey, parents, please educate your children so that they can read more or twice what they watch on the TV, right? Or if you were writing, for example, as I told you about your future vacations, and you defended in your essay that Cancun is the best place to visit in your vacations, then you offer a conclusion saying, hey, please, I recommend to everyone to travel to Cancun in January because at that month we have incredible prices with a lot of discounts and a lot of opportunities for people to visit this country and place without worrying too much about visa or I don't know, whatever you can come up with. The idea is, as you said, to offer a word of advice related to the topic. Yes, is that fine?
Yes, that's clear.
Okay, great, fantastic. Thank you very much, Elsa. Great, so this way we are finalizing then with the theoretical explanation of writing section task number 2. Tomorrow, the only thing we're going to do is to practice the entire class for this particular section, to offer, of course, some feedback as we have been doing before, and to dedicate the rest of our classes for doing so, because, well, just as the speaking section was, this is a very practical part, right? So very good. If there are no more questions, we're going to finalize here then. Your classmates are going to have the chance to watch this in YouTube for them to, of course, even themselves. And as I say, I'm going to have practice tomorrow. Very good. So please let me go to your assistants, dear Elsa, and help me with your kind responses to the poll, okay? Let me look for you. Okay. Got you here. Very good. Wait, so Elsa Maria. Okay, got you. Good. Fantastic. Thank you very much, dear Elsa, for your kind responses and also for having come to the class. It was a pleasure to have you. But as I say, I see you tomorrow in order to finalize this and of course to practice. Okay. If you have any question, you can always send me a message. Okay, dear Elsa.
Thank you so much. Your class are very good, excellent.
Thank you very much, Elsa. No, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much. Okay, so I see you next time. Have a fantastic night. Thank you very much.